Hi all, this is Maria Clark at Sweet Willow Designs and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to work on this really pretty Lotus Heart. I hope you enjoy this project. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, for the paint I'm going to be using a whole series of colors. This is a lot of colors, and one thing I want to mention is you can mix your colors, which I do periodically to get a transition from one color to the next. But I'm going to be using a lot of colors because I'm going to be doing a gradient effect as I dot around the heart. So the colors I'll be using are Vivid Violet, Brilliant Purple, Wild Orchid, Sapphire, Bright Orange, Sour Apple, Hauser Medium Green, Avocado, Hauser Dark Green, White, and then Gold. And you'll notice I'm using the Gloss Enamels Gold. It's not necessary to use that one. That's what I happen to have on hand and the one I picked up first, but you could use another metallic gold that you might have. And that is in Glorious Gold. The color is Glorious Gold. So lots of colors there. We'll get those moved to the side. And I'll be using my regular dotting tools. So I use the Crystalites crochet hooks and a set of nail dotters. You can use whatever set you have that you like to use. I'll be using my ceramic pencil, and I'll be using a Sharpie. This is a water-based Sharpie. Now, for those of you that have these mandala stencils, I hope you love them. We're going to use those in this project, so I think you're going to be excited to see that. And then I'm using this wooden heart that I just got from the Dollar Tree. Now, one thing I want to mention is not everyone can find these at their Dollar Trees, so I put some traceables in my Etsy shop with 8 different designs and some blank hearts of this shape so that you can try them out on your own. And here I've shown you just a couple of different ways I've used it on a 5x7, on another little heart, and then on an 8x10. So there are some different sizes in the design set. All right, so I've got the heart. I did base coat it. I have sanded it because these are not well sanded. And so I've sanded them, and then I'll use my DuraClear, and I'll use a couple of brushes, a wide flat brush and a smaller flat brush for the painting. All right, so here's the mandala shapes, and my heart is all prepped and ready to go. So I'm just looking for different shapes that I think I can use on this particular design. And I'm going for a kind of a lotus design. So I'll be using several different parts of the stencil set. I'm going to go ahead and mark the center point of my heart. So I just have a little orientation for my stencils. And then I'll look to see some shapes. Now I like this shape. This is a little bit of a leaf shape. So it's just a matter of drawing that shape on there. And then I'm trying to make a sort of a kind of a topper for this. And so I like this shape. This is one of my favorites, and it's a pretty good traditional shape. So I'll just go ahead and draw that in, and I'll just add some little extra lines to connect that up. You can overlap the stencils and use them however you wish, but I thought it would be fun to show you how I use them. Then I'm looking for a little smaller of this, this little leaf shape here. I'm just looking for how I want to position it on my design. So you see that I'm overlapping because I'm creating a sort of a whole design here. So I'll overlap them and just sort of try to get it the same on the other side. Okay, that's looking good. See how easy it is to use these stencils? I just love that. All right, and then I'll just put another little petal and just angling it to offset a little bit. Try to get it the same on the other side. Okay, so you see I've got some overlap here. I'm just going to erase that. So I don't get myself confused as I go in and paint. I'm just going to erase the excess there, and then what I'm left with is my main design, and I will just fill that in a little bit for the shape that I'm looking for. Now this particular design is in that heart design set that's in my Etsy shop, so you can take a look at that if you're interested. All right, now I'm just looking for a couple of little brushes. I'm using a flat brush, smaller flat brushes, and I'm going to use 2 colors here. I'll be using the Sapphire and the Vivid Violet to give a sort of gradient look to this top part of this Lotus design. Just a very little bit of paint because it's not a very big space. So I'll just mix those in there. I'm not going to mix them. I'm just going to load my brush, kind of like how I would do for a decorative painting. It's not as precise as that, of course, because I'm just going to mix that, and then it gives me a nice sort of gradient look with the two different colors. And as long as you don't over mix it on the actual heart, then you'll get a nice mix of those two colors. So you can see a little bit of the purple and a little bit of the violet, or the blue and the violet. It is going to take a couple of coats. That's one thing that I wanted to mention to you. So I don't overwork the first coat. Just kind of get something on there, fill it in, and then we'll go back in and put another couple of coats on there. But isn't that nice with the different colors, sort of gradient like that? I think that's really pretty. You can just refine that as I feel like I need to get a nice shape. Now you don't have to be overly precise on this because I am going to go back in with a Sharpie and outline this, so you'll get have a chance. Now I put down a color called Wisteria and it was just way too light. So I don't want you to get confused that I'm base coating this, although you could base coat it. It was just the color was too light and didn't work. So I went in with now the Wild Orchid to get a little bit deeper purple. Same thing, we'll just fill that in, kind of using the outlines from the stencil set. What's nice about these flat brushes is it really does help you get a nice edge. So I just invested in a little set. They're not overly expensive. I'll have some links down below that you can check out. I use a variety of different products, but I like this flat one. Also have some angled brushes. Now I've let that dry and I'm going back in and just replacing that top leaf there because I painted over it. So I'm just going to go in and put that back in so I have a little guideline for my green paint. Now I'm going in with the green, and again just using the flat brush. I'm using the Sour Apple and I'm just filling in. Got a little extra stray bristles on that brush, so I just cut those off. And then fill this in, and then again it's going to take a couple of coats to really get it filled in. Now one thing that I like about this, see how there's a little bit, you can see a little bit of the black showing through? That's actually an okay look. I like that. It gives it a little bit of depth. So you can decide how opaque you want that design element to be. Now I'm going in with the Hauser medium green. And this is just to get a little bit of gradation of color, deepening of the green color on these leaves. As I go back, I want them to be a little bit darker. And then just kind of following the outline. Now I'm going in with a color called Avocado and a smaller brush. And just filling that in. I like adding the different painted backgrounds. I think that's really pretty. So you can see that there's not much of a change in the color, but there's a little bit darker on those out as we go out. All right, so it's dry. I've let it dry. And now I'm going to go in and just do my second coat, and I'll just quickly go through this, but I'm going to add some additional paint just to make it a little bit deeper color. So it's all done. Now I've got my Sharpie. This is a water-based paint pen, and you can test out different ones that you like. I know people use the Posca markers. Oh, and I wanted to tell you on priming these, I've used this pen before, and when I pumped it, it really dispelled a lot of the paint there. So that's okay, just leave it there, and then if I need to, I can dip my pen back into that and pick up some more of that paint. Now this is a medium point, and I'm going around that. You can see that that's a fairly thick line. I think I have ordered a set of the extra fine, and then also fine. Actually, this is a fine. This is not a medium. It's a fine tip. And I think that's a pretty thick line. And it's good for some things, but I felt it might be a little bit thick for the leaves. So I've ordered a set of the extra fine, and I'll maybe use those on some different, on some future projects. But the outlining is really pretty, and the gold paint is really pretty paint. So I've gone ahead and I've done all my outlining, and I can just refine it how I want to. The thing about this is, just like any other paint, be sure you're not getting your hands in it because it stays wet for a little bit. So I've let that dry, and now I'm ready to go in with dotting. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my one of my sort of smaller dotting tools and the white, and I'm just going to outline some parts of this. So my technique for trying to get the best outlining that I can is to do it at the top and at the bottom, and then keep cutting that design in half, so I try to get good spacing. And I'll just go ahead and go all the way around that bottom part of the lotus design. So I've done it close to the top there, in the middle, and then I'm just cutting it in half to try to get my spacing. There, I'm finished with that one. I'm going to make that bottom one just a little bit bigger. Fill in. And then I'm going to go around the top. I'm going to do the exact same thing at the top of this sort of arabesque shape here. Same technique, and I'll just go around as best I can. And then I'll do the other side. Okay. Now this is where I start to do the gradient up around this top shape here. And I'm just using the same size nail daughter that I used with the white, and I'm using my lightest purple color. So this is the Wild Orchid, and I'm just going to go close. I'm not trying to match the dots that are below it. I'm just going close, and I want to closely match the shape though. And so I'm trying to do a good job about that, and I'll just go all the way around with this color, and then I'll keep changing the color out for a series of colors, and then repeat the color pattern. So I'll show you part of that. And here I'm going in now with the Wild Orchid. I'm sorry, this is actually the Vivid Violet. And we're just following that shape along. See how easy that is? And when I need to, I just dot off the edge to keep the pattern going. When I transition, I've transitioned to mix some colors, so I'm mixing the Vivid Violet and the Sapphire to get a sort of transition tone here. And here's the Sapphire. Now I'm going to try to follow that around to the bottom. And here you can see I've just continued to add more rows of the color, and I'm adding it down to the bottom just to keep that design going towards the bottom of the point of the heart. And I'll just keep changing out the colors. So you could use as many colors as you wanted, or as few as you wanted, actually, to get the look that you would enjoy. And just filling in the very tips of the heart, the very top part, and the bottom. And then I've got a little bit of space around that bottom point, so I'll just go around it with, this looks like the vivid violet, and then just go around to add some color to that blank space. There. I love that gradient look. Now that's dry, and I'm going in with the Brilliant Purple, and I'm just going to add some dots to the bottom of this one point here. I'm using my G6 4mm for those larger dots, and then I'll just use my larger nail dotter and walk the dots up the side, keeping fairly close to the gold line. And then a smaller nail dotter, and I'll just repeat that. And you can fill in as much space as you have, because our dotting is all different, so you may have less or more space than I do have. And I filled in the heart. Now I'm using the Hauser dark green. And I'm using the end of a regular pencil eraser cap. And I'm going to put a little accent right on each one of these leaves, and see how I dropped it down just a little bit below the top. And I'll do that on the center and then the two side leaves. On the very small leaves, I'm just going to do a little bit of a swoosh with a small nail dotter. And then I'll use a larger nail dotter and dot down the center to give a vein each one of these leaves, and I kind of curved the second leaves there a little bit. Here's the swoosh, just to fill in a little bit of space there, and it actually gives a little bit of highlight and contrast. And then walk some dots down, just fill in some of that space. And I will let that dry. Now I'm going in with the gold in my K 10.5, 6.5mm, and I'm going to put a dot of gold right there at the top of the leaves. I'll use a nail dotter, large nail dotter, to put a drop. This is why I put the little pencil, the oval, down. I dropped it down a little bit because I wanted to add this piece here, and I just walked the dots part way around that dot. Now I'm using the bright orange. I used a little bit of titanium white. I know people recommend that. I didn't actually like it that much. I think it actually dulled the vibrancy of the paint. So I'd rather just dot it again, because the issue with some of the reds and yellows is that they're transparent. They're a little bit transparent. So I'm using the cap, the eraser cap, put one in the center and then 3 on the side for a total of 7. And just angle them to go around that dot. Now I'm using the very tip of the one of the sharp points of the eraser to just put another little oval there, so I can change the size a little bit. And that Hauser the Hauser dark green was dry. Now I'm using the Hauser dark green again, and just putting a little bit of depth here around the inner line of this design element here, and that gives a little bit of a hint of a shadow. I love the way this pattern looks. It's so pretty. Now I'm just going to start to fill in a little bit. So I'm using the Hauser dark green again and putting a little bit of green here. If you didn't have enough space for it, you just drop this element and don't put it in. And just give a little bit of contrast there. Now I'm going to put a little bit of a crown here and some dots at the end of each one of these petals. And now I'm going to drop down and do some little buds, some little flower to simulate little flowers, and just 3 little dots. With a fairly small nail daughter, I'll just go in and drop 3. And because that green is dry, I can paint right over the top of it and just add a little bit. Drop some of that color down into the green. Now I'm going to carry that orange up a little bit and just choose one of these lines to accent some orange, and that's just going to pull some of the orange up and highlight a little bit. So I'm just top dotting right over those ones that I'd already dotted with the orange. And I like the contrast of that. I think that's pretty. Now I'm going to do a little top dotting. I let all that dry, do a little top dotting with gold. And just come right back in, add a little extra gold accent there. And some on the leaves. Here's a little high close-up. I'm adding some of the dark Hauser green and just kind of accenting a little bit. Now I'm going to take some of the gold and just add another little bit of accent in between these leaves here. Just walk 3 little dots in between. And I've dropped a bit of gold on each one of those orange petals. And now I'm just accenting on that Hauser, right on top of the Hauser dark green, to put a little gold and accent that. I'll look at it to see if there's anything else I think I need to do. I don't think so. I think that looks good. I think I'm done. So the last thing I've done is I have coated it with 3 coats of the DuraClear varnish. And here's a little close-up. And I added a little bead at the top. This has a little hole in it for hanging, but I wanted to add, so I just added a little bead and a head pin there. Just glued it on. And I think that looks really pretty. I hope you enjoyed this project. Thanks so much for joining me in my studio. I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment. I so enjoy hearing from you. Thanks so much for joining me in my studio. Take care.